Hi, today I'm going to show you how to do the netted mesh stitch, which I use for my netted mesh slouch hat. This is worked over 2 pegs and it consists of 8 rows. So to get the desired netted mesh effect, I'm going to show you all 8 rows of how we get this netted mesh. So for row 1, what you're going to do is you're going to be purling each peg around the loom. And so I'm starting with peg 1, and then I'm moving on and I'm going to continue to purl each peg. Right now I'm working on the Cindy Wood 20 peg 5/8 inch gauge loom. Just to show you the technique, I'm using one strand of Red Heart with Love. It's a worsted weight yarn. The color is hot pink, which to me it kind of looks more like almost more like a raspberry, but any worsted weight yarn will work, or if you have a larger gauge loom, you could use a heavier yarn, or if you want it to be really light and airy, use a thin yarn on a heavy gauge loom, or larger gauge loom, like a 3/4 inch gauge. As long as the loom has peg pairs of 2, so that you can divide the loom into 2. You can work this stitch pattern on a variety of different looms. And here I am almost done with my row of purl. And this would be row 1 of the netted mesh stitch. Obviously, if you're making a hat, like my netted mesh stitch hat, which I have a pattern for, you'll be using a larger loom. For my netted mesh slouch hat, I use the 48 peg 5/8 inch gauge Cindy Wood loom. And here we are purling the last peg in a row. I always use the different colored peg that's marked as my last row. My cat thinks he's gonna join in. So row 2, all we need to do for row 2 is we're gonna knit, and for this pattern, all the knit stitches we're gonna be using our E-wrap. So we go around and we E-wrap each peg, and I like to do a few at a time and then knit them over. I find if I do an entire row of E-wraps, it's hard to keep a consistent tension and gauge on my patterns, my projects. We're E-wrapping each peg and knitting each peg using the E-wrap, also called the twisted stockinette. Now we are here back again at the last pig in the row. So we're going to continue to knit. Make sure that all of the pegs have been worked. And we're ready to begin row 3. So we've done a row of purl and a row of knit. For row 3, what we're going to be doing is knitting 2 together and doing a yarn over. To knit 2 together, we're moving the even pegs from each, we're working over 2 pegs, and we're shifting the loops that are on the even pegs to the odd pegs. So we're lifting it up and bringing peg number 2 over to peg 1. We're bringing peg 4 over to peg 3. Now you could go ahead and do them all right away if you want, if that is easier for you. Or you can do, once you've moved them over, you can do them 2 at a time. But this will leave a peg with an empty stitch, and then your odd pegs will have 2 stitches on them. And now from here, we're going to do, for the knit 2 together, since we moved it over, this is peg 1. We moved the stitch from 2 to 1. We're knitting them over, treating both stitches that are on the bottom. You can see there's 2 loops from the peg that we moved over. We're going to knit them both over. So we're knitting 2 together. Now for the yarn over, there's different types of yarn overs. We're using E-wrap yarn over for this pattern. All you do is E-wrap this peg, and you don't do anything else until we get to the next row. And here we have done peg 4. We're on to peg 3, where we are going to knit 2 together and yarn over. We're bringing the bottom loops. Now here on peg 5, we've done the yarn over. Or peg 4, sorry. Here on peg 5, we're doing the knit 2 together. So all the odd pegs will have the knit 2 together, and the even pegs will have the yarn over, which is just the E-wrap yarn over. So again, to knit 2 together, we're moving the peg, even peg over, we're E-wrapping, and we're bringing the bottom 2 over the top. Again, we're moving the peg. That's the even peg numbers over 1 to the odd, E-wrapping and knitting over, and then the empty peg that's created, we're just doing an E-wrap yarn over, and we continue doing that all the way around the loom. And I'm just going to go ahead and, so this is a little faster, move all of the stitches over that need to be moved over. And your row is going to end with a yarn over. So we're E-wrapping the empty pegs. We're not doing anything with those until the next row. And then we've completed row 3. Okay, we're now ready to start on row 4. On row 4, we're going to shift the loops from the even pegs to the odd pegs and lift the yarn from behind the even pegs to the front of the even pegs. I'll show you how that's done. First, that's the first step, is to shift. And our working yarn is here. So we're going to shift the peg from the stitch from the even pegs over to the odd pegs. We're then going to bring the yarn that's behind the peg to the front. Both of these stitches we then knit using the E-wrap stitch, or the twisted stockinette. So again, don't do anything with your working yarn yet. We're moving the even peg, which from the previous row, that's going to be your yarn over, and you're bringing it over to the odd peg, bringing the yarn that's behind to the front, and knitting both of those pegs. You're knitting the two together and bringing one over that. And you can see the ones that you want to move over. Excuse me, my cat thinks. The ones that you want to move over are the ones from the prior row that you yarn over, and they're all the ones on the odd rows, or odd pegs. And this is row 4. And when you move them over, you want to keep the stitch twisted. And you can see there's yarn left on the back, and you're bringing that to the front. I'm going to go ahead and just move all of those odd pegs over. Right away to help make the row go a little bit faster. And each time you bring it over, bring the yarn to the front. And you can see the yarn goes to the front. If you do them all like that right away, then it's just a simple manner of going around the loom and doing the E-wrap knit stitch, lifting the bottom two over the top on the odd ones. And just kind of pushing down as you go. And you're E-wrapping each peg. And your last peg is going to be one of these that you've shifted the yarn to the front, and your working yarn should be ready to start at row 5. for row 5 for this pattern, all we're going to do is purl. When we're done with purling the row, we're then going to do a row of knits. So row 5, you start on peg 1 and you purl. And for me, I find that purling works faster if I just go like this. You can also, like I showed earlier, purl this way, but for me that takes me longer, so I hold my loom like this as I purl. And you're going to continue purling up until your last peg, and that's going to complete row 5. Okay, so here we are at the end of row 5. We're going to purl the last peg in the row, which completes row 5. And we're now ready to start with row 6. And for row 6, all we're doing is a knit. And we're going to use the E-wrap again, and we're going to knit each peg in the row. And we're using the E-wrap knit stitch. And here we are on the last peg of the row, and we're knitting over. And we're now ready to begin row 7. Okay, now we're ready to begin row 7. Row 7 calls for us to SSK and then yarn over. And SSK is a slip knit. It's a needle knit term, which is just the mirror image for a knit two together. So instead of bringing the even pegs to the odd pegs, we're going to be bringing the odd pegs to the even pegs. And then the empty peg that's created, we're going to yarn over. So we're bringing the odd over. We're doing a yarn over on peg 1, knitting peg 2, lifting both loops up over as if they were one. We're bringing odd peg 3 over to peg 4, doing an E-wrap yarn over on peg 3, E-wrapping peg 4, working both bottom loops up over the top one. Now if you'd like, you could go ahead and just move all of the odd pegs over right away. So I'm lifting the pegs on the odd and I'm moving them over to the even. And this is our 7th row of the netted mesh stitch. And now that you have all your pegs moved over, all you need to do is go back and wrap each peg using the E-wrap stitch. The pegs that have 2 stitches on them, lift the bottom 2 over the top, and if that's hard, you can do 1 at a time. And the pegs that we did a yarn over, we're not doing anything until the next row, which will be row 8. And your last peg in the row will have 2 stitches on it, and we're going to be lifting those over. We're just going to continue on the same process. And we are now ready to begin our last row, which is row 8. And for row 8, we're doing it just like we did for row 4, except like before with the SSK, we're doing a mirror image. So we're shifting the loops from the odd pegs to the even pegs. And this were the stitches that we had done yarn over on the previous row. So we're shifting them from the odd to the even, from peg 1 to peg 2, and we're taking the yarn that's behind the odd peg and bringing it to the front. And then we'll be knitting each of those stitches. Peg 1 and peg 2. Again, we're moving the odd pegs to the even, shifting the yarn that's behind the peg to the front. And you can go ahead and just go do that to each peg. Lifting thread to the front. That doesn't want to cooperate. It's gonna try to fix this by doing the yarn over that was there before. There we go. And then once we have them all shifted over, which I still have to finish, but then you just continue on knitting each peg. Bringing the bottom 2 stitches that have 2 stitches on them over the top, new one. And then again, I'm going to show you from a different angle. We're bringing the yarn over. And the yarn that's behind, bring to the front. Sometimes if it's tight, I just tug on a little bit to help give it some slack. And then make sure that the thread, the yarn, all goes to the front of the peg. Go ahead and E-wrap all the remaining pegs. And you have completed then row 8 of the netted mesh. Your last peg, you'll have 2 stitches on. You want to bring them both over the top. So that's the end of the row 8. I'm going to go back and knit over these, but now you're ready to start the pattern over again with row 1, where you'd purl a row, then knit a row, purl a row, knit a row, start with the knit 2 together. For the hat pattern, you just keep repeating row 1 through 8 for the number of times that it calls for. And then there's instructions included on how to bind off. And when you're finished, you have a nice mesh, netted mesh hat. And that's how you do the netted mesh stitch. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day.